Hello, and welcome to another Cabin Fever edition of the Inch from Insanity show. Now, with Cabin Fever in mind, people have been asking me, why don't you just trim your beard and hair? And it's honestly, I just don't feel like it. It grows back too fast. I'm not going anywhere. I'm stuck at home. Maybe if I was working, I'd trim it. How about this? You contribute to my PayPal, I'll start trimming my beard. I'm just gonna wait until this is all over. At least things lessen a bit. I'll just go to my barber and be like, go to town. Make me beautiful again. Although even now I'm still beautiful. Ha ha ha. Yes, but more pleasant news my girl decided to cheer me up. She lives farther away, and it's safer if we don't see each other. Obviously, social distancing. It's complicated. Don't ask. But anyways, to cheer me up, she sent me some very nice things. Check this out: a howling wolf incense burner. How nice. Oh. And also this shirt. I mean, when I opened this, I misplaced my old X-Men shirts. Are weirdly hard to find. They're not as, maybe when they start making the movies, but that's here and there. I am very happy, and thank you, my darling. Mwah. Okay. Now, to get into the subject matter of today's countdown, this is something I've wanted to do for quite some time, and I'm probably, if the show ever does take off, I will redo it so when I don't look like this, and hey, maybe someday I'll actually, wait, I am in a studio. This is actually a very nice green screen, isn't it? It's so believable. It really looks like I'm just in my bedroom, but no, I'm in my studio. Yes, that's where I am. I'm actually talking to a whole team in the back. But I digress. So, what we're going to do today is a list I've wanted to do for quite some time. This is going to be a list of my personal picks for the top misconceptions about Sherlock Holmes. Now, I am an avid Sherlockian. I've read the story so many times. My personal favorite Holmes is Jeremy Brett, but there are other good ones as well. Now, this is not a review of Holmes, even though I will dive into my own opinions about Holmes here and there, but this is basically just a list of all the things people for some reason hold on to, like they think is true about Holmes, and it just isn't. Or a lot of bad adaptations have some of these in it. But we'll get into that. So, what is the first one? Let's check the list. Of course. Now, this one I put at the bottom of the list because it's more of an opinion than a misconception. Sherlock being a drug addict. I mean, I can understand why people will say that, but he's not. It's a gray area in my opinion. Because what it is, his brain is so sharp and so, like, he sees everything that when he's not on a case, he needs something to quiet his brain. It's just so, and someone who suffers from an overactive brain, I can understand that. I've never turned to that, but I did have to take medication as a child. But so I can, and back then, certain mind afflictions were not diagnosed anywhere they were today. So he was essentially self-medicating, and we don't know exactly what cocaine, and I think he might have taken morphine at points too, but. I know there were still people like, but people might say he's still taking drugs that makes him a drug addict. I think it's a debatable issue, but I understand it. The show that I think addressed this very well was Elementary. Now, that's not a canon Holmes, but they did a storyline. The basis of their Holmes is, what if Holmes did go off the deep end and become a drug addict? In the show, he's a recovering drug addict, and they address it very believable, and it works with the show. But they also say the reason he takes drugs, even recreationally, before he became a full-blown addict, was to quiet his mind. And they address this in very interesting ways. Now, this one is kind of a twofer, so that Watson and Holmes living together and being gay. Now, I think because I mean, for all we know, Doyle did intend that, because you couldn't write that back then. Well, I don't. But they weren't in the story. They just weren't. So many people just can't handle. It's like they have to put two characters together like that. Like, again, Elementary. They made, as soon as it was announced Watson was a woman in Elementary, everyone's like, "Ooh, I wonder if they're gonna sleep together." It's like, just because they live together, or because in that one she's a woman, doesn't mean they have to. But I guess I can kind of do it. Long-term bachelors, people, I don't know. I just don't think it was his intention. I think they were just friends and living together. Maybe it was his intention. Now, if someone did a version of Holmes where they actually were, like, secretly together, I don't think I'd hate it, because it'd be interesting, because imagine how that would be if they were back then. Holmes' sexuality, though, and we'll address this in another one, is I like to think he's one of those characters that is beyond, his mind makes him beyond sexuality. Like, it's not, he's almost, I would say he's probably almost asexual. I wouldn't be surprised. Because his mind is just, it puts him beyond the normal people, for lack of a better word. I just, so, but as for living together, Watson wasn't, I mean, depending on which canon, I know. I think Doyle changed it a lot and didn't really address it good in a lot of ways, so that's why people think they were living together. And when he did move out, he moved next door, so it's not much of a difference. But again, this is why these misconceptions are at the bottom of the list. Here's another good one. Next. The Michon pipe and the deerstalker hat. Now, it makes perfect... Here's the thing. It's... I think this is one of those things that happened because when people started doing plays based on Holmes, movies, they had to make him visually interesting, so they changed it around. Now, let's start with the pipe. Holmes is a pipe smoker, and it goes... I wonder if Doyle was, too, because they really go into how much he knows about tobacco, how much he enjoys smoking. He likes to smoke while he thinks. But there's no evidence in the books that he had a full-on Michon pipe, which is a very complicated, especially if it's got the designs on it, pipe. He did have a few pipes, but nothing like that. I think it could be, and this has been some discussion about this, is that the reason that once they started doing plays and movies, he had that specific kind of pipe is it's easier to talk with that sort of pipe. So it's like, oh, I see. You know, so that makes sense. As for the deerstalker, okay, the clue is in the name. Deerstalker. It's a hunting outfit. It's essentially the Victorian Elmer Fudd hat. So he wouldn't wear that in the city. That is something you wear when you're hunting. So when he's in the country, like Hound of the Baskerville, perhaps even Speckled Band, and a couple of others, it's fully believable he could have worn that, but he didn't wear it all. Like a Victorian gentleman, guess maybe if it was an eccentric, would not wear that 24/7 all the time. He'd wear a top hat, coattails, full, or just a suit. But again, it's a product of a visual medium, and it's become associated with him because of the visual medium. It's a cool look, the hat and the pipe. That, yeah, I don't mind it. I don't think it's an insult to Holmes if you show him with the cap. It's not like, oh, have they ever read a book? But that's why these are on the bottom list, because as we start to move up, we're going to get to the bigger misconceptions. Here's a good one. Elementary, my dear Watson. Never says it. Not once. He says elementary. He says, my dear Watson. Never once did he say, it's elementary, my dear Watson. Not one time. Again, some people have surmised this was a product of the plays and perhaps eventually the movies, that people just pushed them together, mixed and matched the words. So again, if an adaptation of Holmes says elementary, my dear Watson, it doesn't insult me as a Sherlockian, but he never said it. So... But here we get into the misconceptions. Oh, bug me just a little bit. This one, not so much. The last two, oh yeah, and you will see my anger rise. So, Moriarty is Sherlock Holmes' archenemy. No. People like, when they like the Joker to his Batman, the Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes. Moriarty is Sherlock's opposite. He is not his archenemy. He's not even mentioned until they essentially set him up to be until he did their final confrontation. Really, he's in like 2 books. I think he's barely. I might be overestimating it too. Basically, Doyle just wanted to make an opposite to Holmes, so he just put him in. Now, some adaptations make it so they say that past cases that Holmes was involved with was actually Moriarty. And you know what? I don't hate that idea. But in the books, he's not his archenemy. It's not someone he's been fighting for years. He's not at the corner of every fight Sherlock is in. He's just someone Doyle made. He just essentially made a criminal Sherlock Holmes. Someone as smart as Holmes, but a criminal. So it's not a big, but I understand why people make the misconception. Again, it's from the movies. The movies and TV shows make Moriarty his arch nemesis, the one always in the shadows. And again, I don't hate it if they do that, develop Moriarty more, hindsight's 20/20 and all that. But these next two misconceptions, there are no excuses for it. I mean, it's just you haven't read the books if you think these are true. Irene Adler is not Sherlock Holmes' great love. This one really bugs me because I've seen in a few adaptations they'll have or they'll have Irene Adler appear and say, "Oh, what we shared together." They didn't share anything together. She appears in A Scandal in Bohemia. That's it. That's the only time you see her. Okay, so let's dive into that story a little bit. In Scandal in Bohemia, a nobleman or prince, I'm not even sure what royal, it's some rich royal snob, goes to see Holmes. Apparently he dated a woman called Irene Adler. He was in love with her. He even said he'd marry her, but her being a commoner, they could never be married. It just wasn't done on all that stuff. Eventually they broke up, and this royalty is going to marry the daughter of another royal to some, arranged marriage, political consolidation of power, that sort of thing. But Irene finds out, and she's so scorned because he promised her the world, and so she's gonna screw it up because she has a picture that proves they were together, and he asked Holmes to find the picture. So Holmes goes in disguise a couple of times. He even meets her in disguise. He eventually sets her up to reveal where the photo is in disguise, and they do have a discussion, but she never meets Holmes while not one of them is at least in disguise. So eventually, I guess a spoil doesn't matter really. If you're listening to this, you're probably a Sherlock Holmes fan, but I won't spoil the ending really. But what I will say is Irene decides Holmes, again in disguise, becomes a witness to Irene Adler's wedding to another man, not Holmes. And it's revealed that in falling for this man, she's let go of all her anger. She even leaves a note, "Listen, I don't care, that I'll keep the picture as insurance, but you live your life. I've met a man who loves me. I don't care." But here's one thing interesting is Holmes, after revealing the location of the picture, goes home and he's like, "Oh, I have done it again, Watson." And someone walks by him, some guy, and says, "Well, good night, Mr. Sherlock Holmes." And he looks because someone said his name. Like, who said that? And it turns out to be Irene Adler because she was an actress. Or an actor, I should say, and she figured out who he was and confirmed it by walking by him and doing that. So and she also, I should say, he made her reveal where the picture was, but he couldn't take it at the time. So when he goes back to get it, again, there was the message I said earlier is in there with a photo of her, not the photo they want, because she outsmarted Holmes. This impresses Holmes. He called her the woman. So if he met her in it's another context, yeah, maybe they would have dated. But in the story, they don't date. They don't start a love. They don't even really meet. Again, the only time they even talk, Holmes is in disguise, and he's trying to trick her. So it's not a real meet. So it doesn't make any. And again, at the end of the story reveals that she's going on to live a life. And also, here's another thing that bugs me. I've seen this in one or two adaptations. For some reason, adaptations of Holmes make Irene Adler a criminal. If you read the story, and again, I won't spoil it for you, but she's not a criminal at all. She's hurt because someone she loved, turned her down and stuff. But we can understand. She doesn't risk lie. There's been some adaptations of her that make her psychotic, or a criminal, or a con artist, or a murderer. And it's like, did you read? And to me, well, let's end with that point. We'll put that over here and take it for better. So, it's just a weird misconception that yes, he admires her, and he calls her the woman, but I think to him he sees it's not about gender. He sees her as an equal, and for Holmes, that's amazing. He doesn't even see Watson as an equal intellectually, and we're gonna get into that in just a minute. So it just, to me, and that's the point I'm bringing back. This is something you hear secondhand. Oh, Irene Adler, Sherlock Holmes' girlfriend. Oh, we better put that in the movie. It's like, if you make Irene Adler Sherlock's girlfriend, and it's supposed to be original canon. Now, again, if you do an adaptation where she comes back and they date, Okay, I won't hate that. But if we're talking canon, and that's the point of this list, they never dated. That is complete. There's not even a hint of that. It's a misconception. Irene Adler never dated Holmes. She is not his great love. So, now finally, this is a big one. This is the reason I created this list. I went from this one and went back. You know what I mean? Dr. Watson, Dr. John Watson, is not stupid. Oh my God, this pisses. I don't mean that people are going to get so excited because it's just bad. Okay, Watson is a medical doctor. He was in the army. That takes some intelligence. He's a gentleman. He's oh not well. I know nepotism and favoritism, but I gotta think if you're able to survive overseas as a medic, and you become a doctor, you go to medical school. I gotta think you got some intelligence. You're not a bumbling buffoon. Now, well, there are people, especially in the current climate, I won't mention names because I don't want them to taint my list, that are smart at what they do and maybe not common sense. But nowhere does it say in the canon that Watson is stupid. Now, I mentioned in the last on the list that Watson is not Holmes's intellectual equal, but Holmes cares for Watson. He does rib him as a friend would rib a friend, but he would die for Watson. He does, he did in the original canon. Doyle retconned that himself, but he protects Watson. He cares for Watson. He views him as his brother, really. And I know some of it, like Watson, a lot of it, like the fact that Watson, I had a wife that died, that off screen, for lack of a better word, in the books, and then they give him another wife and barely mention it. It could be that Doyle just didn't like women, I don't know, or his own, because of what happened with his own wife. But again, Watson, now this stems from, again, I think the movies, more specifically, especially, even though I've seen in another adaptation, the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes, which I don't like, mostly for this reason. Because when you have a detective show, not necessarily just Sherlock Holmes, any brilliant detective show, you got to make him the smartest person in the room. But it's easy to be the smartest person when you're writing the detective story. You can make your character smart. And I don't like when they make the cops stupid. Now, obviously, there are corrupt cops, there are dumb cops. But I gotta think, if you're the head of the major case squad, like you get the big cases, even with favoritism involved, people aren't going to follow you if you're a complete idiot. Now, because of cops are overworked, so it makes sense that they'd rush a case, miss clues, just to solve it and end it. That's the better adaptation of Holmes, when he sees what others don't. I gotta say, Elementary addresses this good. And you know what's another show that I think addressed this good? Castle. They had these two cops called Ryan and Bazile. They were comic relief, but they were good cops. They were smart. They could figure stuff out. They goofed off sometimes, but I could believe that they were with the detectives. And they do this, they do this with the cops, but especially with Holmes. It's like, well, Holmes, what makes you think there's a crime committed? It's like, well, the blood is a... It's like, well, Holmes, obviously the body is the victim. The victim was 6 feet tall. That one's 5'2". Oh, that's a good point. They made the cops dumb, but they've made Watson even dumber. They'll have an adaptation of Holmes be like, Holmes, however did you figure out? Oh, well, it's simple, Watson, you idiot. They've had versions where he actually insults Watson. Holmes, as screwed up as he is a gentleman. Now, obviously, again, adaptations can make him a bit more of a jerk, and we should get into that sometime, but he's still a Victorian gentleman. He wouldn't just start insulting someone he considers a friend. And nowhere in the books does this happen. There are times, I'm getting so excited, you can tell. There are times where Holmes will be like, what do you think, Watson? What do you see, Watson? And Watson will try to deduce and sometimes get partially right, get it wrong, and Holmes will be like, yeah, that was pretty bad, and kind of rib him about it. But Holmes doesn't expect, because here's the big one, Watson is not a detective. And again, let's bring it up again. Elementary, they do a storyline with Watson quits being a doctor and becomes a detective with Holmes. And she becomes good at it. And that makes sense. Of someone of intelligence like Watson, adapt. Like if Watson in the original story decided, Holmes, I want to join you in your adventures, train me as a detective, it makes sense that he'd be good at it. To be a doctor, you have to have an inquisitive mind. You have to deduce. You have to look at someone and go, oh, what? But the only thing Watson is trained in deducing is medicine. So it, again, I keep thinking of the movie version. Like they make Watson a buffoon. I actually saw an adaptation of a cartoon. It's actually a Batman cartoon, but still, Holmes was just outright insulting Watson, and it's just not canon. Holmes is he would defend Watson. It's his friend. It just really, in my opinion, it's the ultimate sign of a bad Sherlock Holmes adaptation. Make Watson stupid. It doesn't make any sense. The character is intelligent. He's said to be intelligent in the books. Yeah, he's not as intelligent as Holmes, but he's not the detective, and Sherlock doesn't expect him to be as smart as him. He's his good friend, his brother. It is the ultimate sign, in my opinion, of a bad Sherlock Holmes adaptation. These two, Irene Adler being his girlfriend, his ex or whatever, and if it's supposed to be original canon, and Watson being stupid. It's just a lazy writing. When you do a detective story, just make everyone dumb and the detective really smart. But so to finalize, Watson, he's Dr. John Watson. He's smart. Is he smart as Holmes? No, but he's not supposed to be. So that concludes our list of the top Sherlock Holmes misconceptions. It was a little longer than most of my videos, just because I get really passionate about it, especially the Watson ones. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we got more videos to come. Everyone stay strong during this very difficult time. If my videos are helping at all, that means everything. That's why I do them. Okay, I also do them because I hope they get famous. But hey, we're not all unselfish. But that's it for now. Again, hope you enjoyed the list. More to come. If you have an idea for a top list, misconception list, something you'd like me to do, please leave it in the comments. I am open to ideas. But until then, everyone stay strong. Difficult time. And just for Sherlock Holmes fans, I hope you like my. If you have more misconceptions that I didn't think of, please leave them in the comments. Now, the great detective would. I'll actually. Before my own catchphrase, my favorite Sherlock Holmes, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And the truth is the point of a misconception list. But until next time, everyone, remember, believe everything, trust nothing.